Let's react to a video by the Style Theorists. This one is called Style Theory. Skincare is a scam?
Hello Internet, welcome to Style Theory, the fresh-faced addition to the theorist family that's creating new wrinkles in your brain.
I don't think Botox can fix that.
Today we're talking about skincare, in an episode that I've wanted to tackle since before the channel was even a little twinkle in my eye. Skincare, from washes, toners, creams, and serums, is a huge piece of the style pie.
Yeah, it's style. I guess you can also call it beauty, aesthetics, but of course, like a lot of people want non-invasive solutions that they can do at home. They don't want to be running to the doctor's office every day, every week, to take care of themselves. So a lot of people look for less invasive options. And they also, not everyone, has that much of a risk tolerance for some of the more invasive procedures that exist.
Also, let's face it, I should probably be looking into skincare for myself at this point.
You can always start with feelconfident.com. That's a pretty good place to start for your skincare needs for both men and women.
The last 10 years on lots of fast food and very little sleep. Not really the best recipe for a glowing, wrinkle-free complexion. But I'm sure that if I just look at a few brands and see what they have to offer,
he looks pretty young. I don't think he has too many wrinkles yet.
I'll be able to fix myself up in a jiff. Hold on, why are there so many options? This one apparently prevents dark spots. This one defends against pollution. This one apparently has something called banana powder inspired pigments. Apparently that just means I'm gonna turn yellow.
Yeah, I mean, there are a ton of these different ingredients that exist in the different creams. And sometimes there are some, big claims that are being made, even if you're not allowed to make the claims. Many companies make them anyway, and then they wait for the governing bodies to eventually come down on them. But by then they may have sold like a ton of their product. So on the other side of it, if you're looking for a base of ingredients that can give you the right feel, smell of whatever it is that you're making, and then is the question of like, well, how do you differentiate your product from others, right? And, I think as long as your ingredients make sense and as long as you're using high quality ingredients and they're in there for a reason and the message that you're putting out is in line with what you actually have in your ingredient list and within the actual bottle, then I think things are okay. But oftentimes it's hard to exactly figure out like what's in the bottle, how much of something there is in the bottle, what are the actual key ingredients. So it can get super confusing from a consumer standpoint for sure.
Should my face be hydrated, oxygenated, glowing, brightened, protected?
Yeah, and I think because there's so many options out there, it can often just be confusing to know what should you actually be doing, what matters and what doesn't matter. So at least in the way that we designed our initial skincare line, it was like, well, let's just take like the most basic things and make them really well. So like a facial cleanser, that's a good thing to use. I mean, you have to clean off the dirt and grime that builds up on our face over the course of the day. So, okay, that makes sense. You take like an HA serum, HA, hyaluronic acid. That is something that's hydrating. It's good to hydrate your skin, right? So that makes sense. And then, of course, a moisturizer. Well, you don't want to be walking around with dry skin and you want to protect the skin from some of the kind of outside forces. So that also makes sense. And then you have something like a sunscreen. Like that's a good idea too. Obviously, we know that the sun has a lot of damaging effects on our skin, especially that compound over time. So these are like the basics, and then we put vitamin C into our moisturizer. Some people have a separate vitamin C and E mix. Some people use retinol. So those are some of the basics. And then you have a lot of these little tiny ingredients that a company will harp on. But whether or not it's really making a huge difference is sometimes debatable.
Maybe I just forego it all, put this mask on, and become apparently what looks to be an android. How am I supposed to navigate all this? How is anyone supposed to navigate all this? Well, that's the thing, friends. We're really supposed to know. If there's one thing that the skincare market is great at, it's sell and don't tell.
And that's exactly what I'm trying to change, right? We're trying to be super transparent with the ingredients that we use in our products so that we are telling people like what goes into it. And I'm showing people behind the scenes, right, footage and to how our manufacturer puts this stuff together. We have a video on that. So we're trying to do now more than just sell, right? We're trying to tell. But he's right that many companies just, they that's not where they're putting their money. It's not towards educating the public. It's more just marketing, flashy images, flashy packaging, and that's what's being done. And often I find that there are some big claims made by some of these skincare companies where in reality, you're not going to get some significant lifting of the face by just rubbing on more cream. At some point, you might consider something like a facelift, right? But the skincare company is not going to tell you that because that's not where they're making their money. So it becomes very tricky to just trust, like, let's say one company who's just giving you your creams to really guide you throughout your aging process, to tell you when it's time to maybe consider something else. So that is also something that the burden falls on the person, on the patient, to really figure out those things, and hopefully our channel helps people with that decision making as well.
This is a $181 billion industry, and it's expected to reach $210 billion by 2028, with the vast majority of that money coming from thousands of face and body products ready to be incorporated into your next 14-step skincare routine.
Definitely don't need 14 steps.
You'll be moisturizing, plumping, brightening, smoothing, toning, rejuvenating, and tightening, all because an ad, influencer, or maybe even just your mom told you that that's what you should be doing.
My mother tells me there is never too much moisturizer. Moisturize, moisturize, moisturize. Sí, te tienes que cuidar.
We believe that skincare products are going to help us stay young forever, but at the end of the day, most of those nice-looking little bottles are full of nothing but empty promises. The skincare industry is able to stay so massive and so successful, not because it's making everyone's face perfect, but because of its incredibly strategic marketing tactics that use our hopes, dreams, and fears against us every time we look in the mirror. How are they doing this? How do they make these products feel so personal, so convincing, and so necessary for all of us? I mean, this industry has us doing 20-step skincare routines, rubbing chemicals that we can't pronounce all over our faces, and pushing youthful skin on people who aren't even old enough to vote.
It's a good point that each of these products has chemicals within it, right? You can't have like I don't know what some people are hoping for, but some people really want the most, natural, organic thing. Any of the products, if you really look at the full ingredient list, there are some real chemicals in there, and they're used to give you that consistency that you like and that feels nice on the skin. But at the end of the day, it is a chemical. So I agree with this person that, hey, you don't want to be doing an excessive amount of applying all these different things just to satisfy the market, right? So you have to be smart about what you use, and you don't want to overuse. I mean, there is something to be said for that. Plus, of course, it gets expensive. The more steps you're adding to your skincare routine, the more money in the pocket of skincare companies and the like. But is it really necessary for you?
To make it through the literal gauntlet of skincare marketing that they're throwing at you every day, you're gonna need to slather on a heaping helping of knowledge. But don't worry, when this episode ends, you'll be armed with every advertising secret so you can emerge a warrior for your wallet. There's a lot of talk about your skin looking youthful, taking years off your face, turning back the clock. But you ever notice how no one ever mentions the actual age that you're shooting for there? How young are you supposed to be looking here?
And again, this goes way beyond just skincare. I mean, some of these questions are good questions about what's the ideal of beauty in general? What should we be striving for? And, I think to some degree, society might set that norm. But also, I think that us as individuals need to, take a stand on like what matters most to us. Some people aren't really bothered by how they look at all, and they don't care, what people think of them. And so that's fine. They just live their life without too much focus on their appearance. But for the rest of us, there is some relevancy, and there is some correlation between how we look and how we're treated by others. So I think it's important to realize that this goes way beyond just a skincare routine.
What is the ideal? From where I'm sitting, 25, it's pretty young. When I'm 50, 35 is gonna be young. For some of you, you're probably like 26, and so 18 is young. What defines youthful skin, and why have people been trying to keep it for the past 5,000 years?
We do have some concept of what youthful skin is. I mean, it's skin that doesn't have too many blemishes, right? Blemishes, things that can be caused by the sun over time, for example, sunspots, things like that. Also wrinkles, also a loss of turgor to your skin. That type of tighter, smoother, less wrinkled skin is what we consider to be more youthful.
Skincare marketing started out relatively mild with Vaseline. First marketed in 1870 in print ads. It could be used as a makeup remover, rash guard, oil for your baseball glove, hair cream, furniture polish, and lip balm all in one.
But again, if your skin is super dry, I mean, to be able to put some Vaseline on really tends to help. So it's not not totally erroneous here.
Let's see how the setup goes in the 1960s.
If you're a soap and water girl, remember soap removes natural oils, and soap doesn't reach deep-set dirt.
A couple decades later, well into the 80s.
This mirror reveals the whole truth. This woman just washed with soap. See the makeup and dirt soap leaves?
I don't see that, actually. But now I'm going to constantly be wondering if my invisible dirt is ruining my life.
I mean, it is true that a facial cleanser is basically like a mild soap. I mean, that there's definitely some truth to that. There are some other components in there, but at the end of the day, I mean, that's what it is.
Have you been ignoring your skin, Pat? Well, look at the dirt your soap missed. Ooh.
That's why, as a skin consultant, I recommend Pond's Cold Cream, lifting away makeup and dirt that soap left behind. See?
Hold up, what's a skin consultant?
Pond's cleans deep down into your pores.
Probably not a dermatologist, maybe a, I don't know, like a esthetician of some sort.
Looks great. So soft.
Same tactics, same messaging for almost 50 years. It works because it makes you think that there's something wrong with what you're doing, when what you're doing is probably totally fine for your skin.
No, I mean, I wouldn't assume that people are doing all the right things for their skin. So I think there is something to be said for proper consumer education. But I think that, making people constantly feel bad about themselves is also not a good approach.
Tails perfectly into marketing tactic number 2, FOMO. See, if you're presented with a problem and then an ad tells you that it's going to solve your problem, suddenly if you don't buy the product, well, then you're missing out. To add to all that pressure, we live in an age where there are thousands of beauty influencers online who are constantly getting products, just hundreds of new products shipped to them in the mail. Many of them swear by these products when they're showing them to you in a video, even though they might have just gotten them for free in a PR package. They might have been sponsored by the brand, or, they might have just tried them the one time.
But, some good points for sure. From my perspective, we're going to be sending our products out to some influencers for the same reason, right? Like everyone else does. But I have to say that this is generalizable to many other things that are marketed to all of us, to each of us, right? So whether it's the snack or food or restaurant out there, they're trying to kind of give you the same type of marketing. There's influencers and they go to the restaurant and maybe they got a free meal and they're saying how great, the pasta was. I mean, it's not like these tactics that he's talking about are pretty basic marketing tactics in general that go beyond just skincare.
Marketing, FOMO, preys on the most powerful emotion you got, fear. Instead of inspiring you to buy something, it makes you feel bad that you don't buy something. So how do you spot these tactics? Well, it is literally every skincare video on TikTok.
Love this. Absolutely get it.
I mean, I don't think they're necessarily scaring people. Like from what I'm hearing in this commercial, it seems like she's inspiring people by saying, hey, this is how you're going to get, really shiny skin. If that's what you want, do this. So far, I haven't seen these scare tactics that he's talking about.
Towel to dry your face. If you use a regular towel, I swear to God, it's gonna break you out. Use Panoxyl.
Okay, I guess that's a scare tactic. Okay.
Once a week. I freaking swear by Panoxyl. And lastly, you can never have enough
If she freaking swears by it, we gotta get it. Come on.
hyaluronic acid in your skincare.
Personally, I love this TikTok where it's literally just labeled skincare.
I don't think she's applying that correctly with all that stuff just dripping down her face like that. Usually it's like a pea-sized amount that you spread, not just like pouring it on your face.
Skin talk trends like glass skin, bubble cleanser, that weird green stick mask from a couple years ago, all of them driven by FOMO. The smartest thing that you can do in the face of all this fear-based marketing is to just walk away. Think about what you really need. Unfortunately, the skincare industry is plenty well equipped to make you feel stupid and blur the lines. One of skincare's favorite tactics to continue to blur that line is to tell you you're buying something because science. A quick reality check here, friendos. Skincare products fall into the category of cosmetics, not medicines, so they don't have any testing or approval requirements from agencies like the FDA.
Right, not from the FDA, but there are third-party testing facilities, and certain companies, including when we made our own products, go through this type of testing. So like our facilities out in New Jersey that we broker with, it's the Consumer Product Testing Company, and basically they're looking for specifically if there are any hypersensitivities to the product. So will they make people, break out in a rash or something like that? So they do an actual clinical study for that purpose. Now, if you wanted to test if the moisturizer, let's say, is, hydrating, or how much better does someone feel using that moisturizer versus, using nothing or using something else, or how much thicker the hair feels. There are other types of studies that they can do. You have to pay them for that, but they have doctors there who perform these different types of studies. There's, of course, another level of testing, which is for a peer-reviewed clinical paper. That's also an option, That, of course, usually costs more and might be a little bit more challenging to run, especially for a cosmetic product, but it's something that can be done. So there is some testing that goes into many of these skincare products, even though they're not regulated by the FDA. And in terms of like the more sciencey type of formulations, there is something to that too. Like, for example, for our hair care products, I did a full review of the literature and I presented that video on YouTube about what are the more natural ingredients that can go into a hair care product that, for example, have been tested much more than others, right? Which of the natural products have better research to back them up? Just because it's something natural like a soft palmetto, it doesn't mean that it has, the same amount of evidence or the lack of evidence as something like rosemary oil, right? These things are sometimes actually studied and there are papers written about them. And so I think instead of just poo-pooing on all of that, it's important to investigate that literature and to understand it and to see how you can best incorporate some of those findings into something like a skincare or hair care product.
Despite not being actual medical products and not having any scientific requirements, isn't it funny how a lot of them are still using these big sciencey words?
If you have sensitive skin and are looking for an AHA, mandelic acid's for you.
Microepidermic hyaluronic acid, 50 times smaller to penetrate deeper.
Microepidermic, mandelic acid, these are all classic examples of scientism, which is a term that's started to show up a lot more in health and wellness blogs lately. Scientism is the tactic of infusing scientific and technical language into products to make them seem more effective, even when there's no actual science involved.
Again, there are studies on many of these different types of products, and some of them are peer-reviewed and some of them are not. And just because they're not peer-reviewed doesn't mean that they're like false and fabricated. And I should also point out that there are plenty of peer-reviewed literature articles that are later proven to be untrue or where information has been falsified. And many of those studies have been used to lead to FDA approvals for different things. So it's not like just because something is FDA approved, it is the most, perfect, safest thing that exists. There are imperfections in all of this testing, whether it's like the fanciest lab and the government is giving their stamp of approval, or something like a clinical testing facility for one of these cosmetic products. All of it is full of imperfections because we're all imperfect.
They're also really emphasizing that this uses ingredients that you can't pronounce or that you don't understand. Know that they know that you don't understand. You're not supposed to understand those words. You're just meant to think science cream work good and fork over that credit card information.
And this is where I hope we can differentiate what we do, in that I want people to understand exactly what's going into their products. And when it comes to surgery, I want people to understand the complexities involved, right? Whether it's a hair type of surgery that I do or facial plastic surgery. In the past, people would gloss over, risks, potential complications, the different nuances of surgical technique. And what I've tried to do with this channel is to be more honest and frank with many of these things, whether that's, sometimes even talking people out of doing certain surgeries. And so with skincare, hair care, I'm trying to do something very similar.
It sounds great and sciencey to say that something's been clinically tested, but unfortunately that doesn't really tell you much of anything. Remember, there are no regulations here. No one's checking in to see who any of these creams and serums are being tested on. How many people were in the test? What was their age group?
Well, no, just because the FDA is not involved doesn't mean that you can't get this information. So let's say somebody requests the testing results from, our own moisturizer or HA serum, right? We can provide them with that information that shows that after they've tested 50 people, let's say, of exactly, the ages that they are and other ethnic background on that person, we know that, let's say, none of them or maybe one of them developed some sort of actual reaction to the cream, right? So that is information that's given to me by the testing facility, and I can supply, anyone who's interested with that information. So it's not like a total like black box, like you can't get to that information. So some of this I disagree with.
Some products that just have no data. A lot of drugstore or smaller brands are kind of like this. So if you use them, you're just taking them at their word. For some higher end brands though, they do claim to have tested their products, and they might even list the results on their website, like this vitamin C serum from Estee Lauder. They say that 86% of unknown testers, I guess, said that their skin tone looked more even.
Well, I think he should request the actual study to look at it, because I'm pretty sure they have it somewhere in their collection. They can supply him with that. For our products, for example, I mean, there is cost involved in doing these types of tests. So we've already paid this clinical testing company for making sure that it's a safe product to use. I think that's the most critical. And then as far as like, how your skin feels over the course of months and, what percentage feels like it's more even, there's an additional cost associated with running a study like that. So that's something that I definitely want to, look into. But it takes time to run these studies and to have the capital to pay for these studies. And that's why these bigger companies sometimes, can get this done a little bit quicker and easier.
88% said that their skin felt firmer. That sounds pretty darn great, right? That's numbers. That's data. Well, it's certainly not nothing, but dig a bit deeper and I'll let you decide if the numbers are still convincing. The fine print on the website lets us know that they had less than 100 people in their clinical trial. Already not great.
Yeah, but again, like many studies that are clinically published, that are actually published in the literature, go through peer review, especially on the surgical side of things, have numbers like this, less than 100. And sometimes even big time medications and drugs that are approved by the FDA, right? If it's like a newer type of drug, often have very few patients for the initial approval stages, right? To just show that it's safe, right? Especially if it's something like a cancer drug for a rare type of cancer, they're not going to be giving that to hundreds and hundreds of people before they get an approval to use it, because sometimes there's an indication there to get it out to people sooner if it can, prolong their life, just as an example. But so there's nothing inherently wrong with having just 95 people. I mean, that's still information. The question is, are the statistics powerful enough to show that there's a statistically significant difference? And that's something where you'd have to kind of go into that study and take a look.
No information about what age they were, their ethnicity or skin type, if they were able to use other products, what the overall parameters of this entire thing were.
And again, the company most likely received that data, right? But it's just that they may not choose to put it up on their website, or maybe they feel like that would bore people, so they give them the highlights of the study. So just keep that in mind.
And remember, we're talking about a 3.4 ounce bottle of cream. That is less than a travel size for $100. But okay, back to what they do have. This data is based on them using the cream for 6 weeks straight. The instructions say to use it 2 times per day, so that's 84 applications, and it's ideal, their words, after using yet another product. But we don't know if that was related to the experiment. On top of all of that, some of the bigger claims, like the fact that it'll reduce your acne scars and dark spots, minimize your pores, those don't have any evidence, not even a footnote in here. I don't know about you, but looking at this, didn't feel like enough. Is there anything else we can do as customers to try and get more information? Well, I tried. I did an internet search for the Estee Lauder studies that would be published if they were public, and I found nothing. I'm not blaming the company for this. It could be that I just missed them. It could be that they haven't publicly published the data. I'm not trying to shame them or anything, but I wish that they had linked to the actual study somewhere.
Listen, that's a really good point, and I think that we might consider doing that now that he brought that up, at least to the safety and efficacy studies that we've done. And then as we get more of like the clinical outcome studies done, maybe we should link those as well. So I think that's a valid point.
The message this sends to me is that they want me to feel like I have the scientific data I need to shell out $100 for a tiny vial of serum, but they don't actually want me having access to the full slate of numbers, lest I find something that doesn't quite live up to the promises that they're so keen on promoting. Since I couldn't find information on this specific Estee Lauder study, I decided to broaden out my search to look for any clinical studies done on vitamin C serum to see what is available out there in the public. For such a well-known product, there was a lot less than I expected. While there were a couple, and I do mean 2 or 3 studies in middle-aged patients that showed vitamin C reducing sun damage, the broader results were underwhelming and often nothing at all. The results of actual clinical testing on these serums has been so bad that the New York Times published an article specifically calling out the fact that this is not a proven ingredient to fix the problems with your face.
I actually have a video about vitamin C and some of the challenges that exist when you apply it on your skin. So make sure to check out that video to understand a little bit more about why it's difficult to make a stable topical vitamin C product.
Nowadays, aspirational beauty content centers around influencers online. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The grammars and talkers who have perfect skin always do their 47-step skincare routine and always dress well, eat well, live in a beautiful home. Everything you want to be, if only you knew their secret.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe the UGC creators of today are pretty much that same type of kind of aspirational, figure for somebody who's scrolling through their TikTok, let's say. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I totally understand that. But again, that's like many times I think why we go and watch movies. You see these like beautiful celebrities doing their thing, or why we watch these award shows, or there's a lot of things that are kind of aspirational that maybe we feel like we may never completely achieve, but we watch it for some almost like elevated elevated status of society, or some segment of society. So in this case, it's actually something that someone can buy, someone can touch, and they can maybe try it on themselves. And I don't think it's all bad. I think that this video is making it seem like none of this stuff works for any reason. You should never use it. But I think that's one extreme viewpoint.
Celebrity skincare routines from Paris Hilton, Ariana Grande, Kendall Jenner, all of them are great examples of these aspirational skincare moments that make us believe that we too can look like Kendall as long as we shell out $300 for her night cream.
I think one of the biggest issues, it's not so much that skincare, doesn't work. Of course it works, and many of these products do something for your skin, and it doesn't mean that you need to take 50 of them and mix them all together and spend all day applying this stuff. But surely certain basic, skincare products do work and do their thing. The bigger issue I find is when the effect on especially a celebrity's look is attributed to their skincare, or I remember in J-Lo's case, it was the oil that she was applying, rather than potential plastic surgeries that they may have had that have actually lifted their face or changed the contour of their nose or their cheeks or even their entire jawline. So misattributing again, I think is a big issue, and I think is more important than overplaying the potential benefits of a skincare cream, So that's my thought.
First of all, you look for these tactics. The next time a beauty influencer pops up on TikTok, identify the emotions that you feel when they're telling you to try the trend right now, or that you have to get a product that they use. The truth is, you don't have to do anything. Really, you don't. You don't have to buy anything. Buying or not buying face cream will absolutely not change your life. The only thing it is gonna change is your credit card bill at the end of the month.
Yeah, but again, this goes for anything else. I mean, why buy anything? Why buy? I mean, we know we need some basic food and some basic clothing, but surely most people, have some favorite restaurant that they go to, or a favorite clothing brand that they really like, right? But like, why buy any of that stuff? Let's just buy the bare minimum, to just kind of get by. I think there's beauty in a lot of what life has to offer, and sometimes supporting a brand that you like, and you like what they stand for and the type of things that they create, and you think it looks good, it feels good, it tastes good, whatever the reason is, or you just want to support a specific creator, or you want to support your favorite celebrity. There's nothing wrong with that. So, again, this is one extreme viewpoint, but it's one that needs to be, I think, a little bit more balanced against some of the actual benefits of skincare, and also that, marketing is marketing. That's what marketing is, but it's not all bad.